you could please call the roll.
Attorney Maglio-Ketty.
Here.
Mrs. Danahy.
Here.
Mr. Tui.
Here.
Mr. Bevilacqua.
Here.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Here.
Mr. Wood.
Here.
Mayor Fiorentini.
Here. Would you all please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone, to the Haverhill School Committee. The first item on the agenda is public participation. Is there anyone here for public participation? Mr. Cunha, are you here to talk about negotiations?
No.
You're welcome to, but if you do, I have to leave the room.
Yes, no.
Okay.
This is not about negotiations. I do want to say that I appreciate the very cordial meetings we've had. And I'm here because you're Haverhill educators as well. And I believe we're all united in something. Right now, I think we're at the point in Haverhill where we have to get more funding for education. And I'm here to invite you all to join us next Tuesday at the City Council meeting, and we would love to have the mayor there so that we can start the dialogue and see what we can do to try to better fund education in the city of Haverhill. So I brought this for you because you're all Haverhill educators as well, and we are all united in trying to better education in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Well, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here for public participation?
Real quick,
The next item on the agenda, I'm sorry. Mr. Wood.
I had my light on. I just wanted to thank Mr. Cunha for coming forward, and as you're right, we've had some cordial meetings, and I think that that's the way to go. You're right. It's very important for us as a city to fund our future. There's no doubt about that, and that's what we need. There's certainly, obviously, as everyone knows, we need the police is important, fire is important, etc. No one's downplaying any of that. They all have reasons why they're important. But educating our children is always of the utmost importance, and anything that any of us can do, I think I speak for all of us, that we all support education. We all believe in having the best talent here to provide the best education to our children. So I think I speak for all of us when I say that, and that certainly we support what you're saying in that aspect.
We'll see you Tuesday.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is communications and reports, Student Advisory Council report. Emma Kalustian.
Hi, Emma couldn't be here tonight. I'm McKenna Judge. I'm representing Student Council. First on the update, we have the Night of Stars is being held tonight at the high school. Last Friday was the junior social at DeBurrows, and over 200 students attended, so that was a good event. Right now, the high school is in the middle of PARCC testing and AP testing, which is concluding tomorrow, and MCAS will be next week for the underclassmen. Tomorrow is the senior class trip to Six Flags. Student elections for student government officers are scheduled to be held on May 20th. May 18th is the district-wide art show in the auditorium to the main lobby, and the health fair held in the gym from 4 to 7 p.m. Also May 18th from 5 to 6 p.m. is the parent info night for incoming freshmen, and that will be held in the library. Also May 18th, a busy day, from 6 to 7 is the middle school science fair held in the HHS cafeteria. And also there's an opportunity to host an exchange student from China from June 2nd to the 12th. So anyone who's interested in that can just talk to the school about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent comments and report.
The first thing, members of the school committee, I'd like to just inform the public that we did have the groundbreaking, as many of you know, for the Hunking School. It was well attended by people from throughout the city, and we had all the students from the Hunking there. We were honored to have the state treasurer and the director or the chief executive officer of the School Building Association, or the School Building Assistance Bureau, rather. We also had our State House delegation. They were all in attendance, and as have their staffs were also present. So it was a wonderful event. Every single student at the school got a little rubber band for their wrist, which said Hunking School on it. And the students, the children were all involved. And now as we go through the process, we're going to have different assemblies where the students have the opportunity to listen to the contractors about safety and different facets of the construction. So the construction companies are going to be working with us on doing things of that nature. The next thing is tonight we have the Haverhill High School Model UN presentation, and I'd like
John.
Mr. Timmons to come forward and to present that to the school committee.
Hi, I'm Mr. Simmons, as you guys
We didn't know which
already
group you
know.
were with, Mr. Simmons.
We're going, I think, on our 11th or 12th year doing Model United Nations at the high school, and the team is incredible. We have, at the International Model United Nations Association, I was actually selected to be on the board for the last 2 years, and for the National High School Model United Nations, which is about over 3,800 kids from around the world and from around the country all come to New York City, and we meet ambassadors and we interact with each other. And of that, one of Haverhill High School's alum, Joe Sherlock, was selected as Director General. This past March when we were there, Jason Toney, another one of our former students, was actually read at the podium of the actual UN, read a letter on behalf of Ban Ki-moon to all the delegates about how important the program is. I also teach international relations, which kind of overlaps sometimes. The same thing gives the kids opportunities, if they're not going to do the Model UN team, to really get to know what's going on in the world and how the world's reacting to each other. And we do it in real time too. Like if something comes on the news, we're on it that day. And we do a debate in that class as well, which is what we're currently working on. But I don't want to talk about all that. I'm going to have these young people introduce themselves and tell them what they did in that program. And then if you have any questions or something, you can ask us. Anna?
Hi, my name is Anna Rossi. I'm a sophomore at Haverhill High, and next year I'm going to be one of the co-head delegates of the Model UN team. I've been part of the Model UN team since freshman year, and the past 2 years have been an amazing experience. When I joined last year, I never thought that the club would make this much of an impact on my life. It taught me so much about the world around me. Before, I never really knew about the other countries in the world, or how wars and international affairs really worked. I figured, why would I need to know about what happened on the other side of the world? Little did I know, everything that was happening around the world actually directly affected my life, because the world really isn't such a big place. I've also learned the skill of public speaking, that talking in front of an entire room of people, of usually 100 or more, isn't really that scary. I've also learned the skills of leadership, knowing what it takes to be a good leader and get to work well with everyone, even if you may have some differing opinions. Not only did Model UN teach me about the world, it also makes amazing friends and lets you meet great people. Those people literally come from around the world. At our conference in New York City, I met people from California, Mexico, Italy, Egypt, and so many more countries, really showing me how we all aren't that different. Also, the Model UN team has brought in many awards for our school, including Outstanding Delegation as a whole the past 2 years at UMass Lowell. It's also really great to go to conferences representing Haverhill High, because we are a well-respected team at Lowell, but also at the largest international conference in the world, held in New York City. I'm really glad I get to be a part of this program for 2 more years, and I know that even after high school, Model UN will make a big difference in my life in a positive way. Thank you, and I also just want to take this time to thank Mr. Simmons for all that he's done for this program. Because if he didn't put in all this work, we definitely wouldn't have a program at Haverhill High that's as successful as it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Rossi. We can see you certainly learned how to speak in public.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danny Brown, and I'm a junior at Haverhill High School. This year, I was chosen by Mr. Simmons to be a head delegate for the upcoming Model UN year. After joining the club my sophomore year, it's changed my outlook on the world and even what I want to study in college. I've been much more politically and socially active throughout the past 2 years in both my research for committees and even in my free time just to learn what's going on in our world today. The annual 3-day trip to New York City for the national conference is an amazing experience. I've met kids from all over the world. The Model UN Club is like a family. All delegates learn from each other, and it teaches delegates the value of teamwork and hopes to understanding world issues. I made so many friends that I would never have the chance to meet. Model UN has taught me so much over the past 2 years, and it was easily one of the best decisions I've made in high school by far. I look forward to what next year brings and helping new delegates learn the ropes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin Kivett. I'm a senior leaving within the next week.
We didn't
As-
tell you, Ben, we didn't tell you, we extended that.
All right, well, I'm
think you
still
missed it.
not going to go after the 22nd. Just going to lay that out there. But I can remember walking into Mr. Simmons' international relations class as a freshman, and he kind of whisked me in there really quickly as I was supposed to be in another class. And at the moment, they were doing their mock Model UN, and it was the most interesting thing to be able to sit in on. And at the end of the class, I went up to him and I asked, "Is there a club like this?" And he goes, "There actually is." And later, and at the time, he told me, "Usually we don't pick freshmen. We already have ours for this year." And he said, "Wait until next year. You'll have your chance." That's exactly what I did. And going into that club the first time, being at that first meeting was really, really overwhelming. Juniors and seniors who all kind of knew what they were already doing, and they were all talking and sputtering these words that I didn't know. But it's a family kind of feel once you get into the club. And I can remember Mr. Simmons especially kept me there. At times I wanted to leave and didn't really think I was ready. I wasn't really the public speaker that I am now. Definitely learned that through Model UN. But there's no feeling like walking into that Model UN room, and it kind of opened you up for the rest of the real world, and it gave me the calling to be a lawyer, because that feeling of walking into a room where everybody's eyes were on you and everybody was listening to what you had to say was something that just motivated me to keep going and to keep speaking. And I got to thank Mr. Simmons for getting me to stick with the club, because it was not easy. It's not an easy task. We got to write 4 to 5 page papers for each and every conference we go to. And there's skills there that you don't learn in regular classrooms, and you only really learn when you get to take this extra chance every day. So, thank you.
They're all either head delegates or were head delegates, and which means that the club is run. It's actually a team, and I like the family idea. His brother did it. We've had a number of brothers and sisters that are on the team. At one point, we had 2 sets of brothers, 2 cousins. My cousin is somebody else. But it's a family thing, and each kid sort of goes down and talks to their siblings, and they want to be a part of it. And I think that both the Wirtz brothers are on it now. And it's really enjoyable, and it's a lot of work. These, without being graded or anything, these guys, like you said, they write a 6-page, sometimes more, research paper. And what it is, it's international law, and they have to do it as, but there's certain rules, certain ways you have to write. Sure, Ms. Maglucci knows about, lawyer stuff. But it really gets them ready. And the idea of how to speak at a committee, when we have placards we have to raise, when to point of personal privilege, all that, the Roberts rules, they learn all that. And it's a tight group. And we've extended it to the middle school, and we had a really successful time last year. Right now we're trying to figure out if we're able to do it again this year with the scheduling, but it'll definitely be up and running next year. So we have a group from down there from the middle schools, and some of those kids came up this year, and we just said, all right, let's put some of them in and see how they do at the college level. We went to UMass Lowell, and I think 4 of them won awards or something. It was amazing. These kids are just, Haverhill High has a great reputation for being intelligent and feisty and cool, and that's at the end of the day too. We see kids. We're always the coolest team there. We notice too. And then kids. We were saying earlier, Susan and I was talking earlier about students that have gone through it. Kara Kimball ended up working at World Health. She's now in Ireland. And Mara went to Lebanon. Christine Fitzpatrick got an Emmy nomination for something that she did, a TV thing she did through National Geographic. Ryan Burke gets a full scholarship to the Naval Academy, and as a civilian, because of the program, and and the list goes on and on and on. So these kids end up doing better than I do through this program. But I didn't have this in high school. I started at UMass Lowell, and I've helped other programs start. North Andover, and they're great. The one at U Lowell we started. Do you have any questions for these guys, by the way? I think I
will.
talked too much.
No questions. If school committee members have comments, and I'm sure they're favorable. And anything else? Mr. Bevilacqua.
First, let me say thank you, because we're an international economy, and you're helping to learn more about the economy. You're helping to learn about the interaction of people. You have to learn more about the interaction of business and community, and I think it's tremendous. I think it's another example of the great teachers we have here bringing together these new ideas, these new initiatives. But I think in terms of the kids, and I call you students as kids, and I mean that sincerely and respectfully, it's a world economy that we live in. Everything we do today is something that's happening around the world. We need to know about it. We need to understand it, because that's where your job is coming from. That's where your products are coming from. That's where your lifestyle comes from. So much comes from an international basis. And if we don't understand it, we can't succeed. I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. The connections you're making, the ideas you're making, the fact you're thinking globally, not just locally, is so important. And I just want to commend you all for doing this and encouraging you to continue on. And I hope you stay so involved in understanding what's happening in and around the world. You know, the UN is an opportunity for us to learn more about how to help people, you know, around the world in so many issues, not just in crisis, but also in good times as well. But I think where it takes you is an opportunity, because it takes you beyond the confines of the borders of the city of Haverhill. It shows you there is a world outside of Haverhill that you need to explore, because you may be part of something bigger than you think about right now. And I would just want to commend you and commend the teacher, because of the fact that it's an opportunity that didn't exist for many people years ago, and you're taking advantage of it, and I think it's tremendous, and I'm so proud of what you do. And the enthusiasm continues to show through, and that's why I think we have the best teachers here in Haverhill High School. You know, they bring the best out of our kids, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Magliochetti.
Thank you. This is always something I look forward to when I sit here on the school committee, and that's students coming before me and making these presentations. I'm proud of all of you up there. Danny, I've watched you grow up since forever, and I was proud of your brother when he was up here. I'm proud of you again. Same for you. Ms. Rossi, you are a great public speaker. You're very articulate. You're very clear. You resonated. And, you know, I agree with what Mr. Bevilacqua said, but there's so much going on in this country and in the world right now, you know, with the riots in Baltimore, with all the conflict in the Middle East. We need a society that's able to speak freely, clearly, articulate thoughts, and engage in dialogue. That's the only way we're going to progress as a global society and move forward in peace. And I think that in some way, what you are learning here, the skills that you're learning, will make you part of that solution. And that's why I'm optimistic about the future of this country and the world, because of great students like you, because of programs like this that put these kinds of global situations in context, that you are able to discuss it in a classroom environment, that you have a great teacher like Mr. Simmons that makes you think about not only the problem but the solutions. We have a saying in our office, you know, when we sit down together as attorneys and we'll talk about a case or a situation, we tell each other there are no problems, only solutions. So let's talk about those. And I think that's something to keep in mind as you go forward. I'm proud of each and every one of you and everyone else in the program and everyone that's been in the program. Mr. Simmons, thank you, and keep up the great work.
Ms. Ryan Chiadello.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Excellent presentation tonight. Well done by all three of you. Excellent public speakers. You should be very proud of yourself. I'd like to echo a little bit of what Mr. Bevilacqua said, just to commend you on the fact of reaching out and, you know, broadening your mind about global and, you know, what's going on in the world, because many high school age students and middle school age students only think, you know, things that are happening locally, and that's what they pay attention to, and that's what it's important to them. So what this program is doing and what you just said, where these past students have moved on to these great things, just shows how wonderful it is. And again, it's another example of the excellent teachers that we do have in Haverhill, and I thank you for what you're doing. Very, very good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm sorry. Who am I, did you have your light on, Miss Danny?
No, I did not, but
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Every year I have an opportunity to speak in Mr. Simmons's class, and I always have a wonderful time talking about ancient history back when I was in school. Kids get out their history book and say, no. But I've always been very, very impressed with you and with your students. It's always very engaging. So another great thing that you're doing. I'm impressed. Tell me a little bit more about the Model UN. Did you have a particular topic that you debated this year?
Well, that's why when we look at history, anything with history takes all the subjects at once, and I'll have them just run through just some of the topics they've done this year and the past, and it covers the full gamut of humanity. In Haverhill itself, and to speak to what he was saying, we also have a lot of the consulates come up to Haverhill. The German consulate, Mr. Scully was involved with that too. The Norwegian consulate. We have people come to Haverhill, and Haverhill is neat. It's all the kids that go out. They find that Haverhill is the perfect example of a world city. It's a little old. It's a little new. It's colonial. It's industrial. It's got everything. People are very impressed.
And people from all over the world live here. I meet people almost every day from another country that moved to Haverhill. So what are some of your countries?
Tell us what the topics.
I don't want to
you
take up
guys
too
had.
much time because we do have to do the budget today. Ms.
Most
Rossi.
recently at the UMass conference, I was the Russian Federation, and my topics were deforestation and the sustainability of natural resources.
Wow, excellent.
Anna won't tell you, but she actually won that room. You probably should have mentioned that. What's most amazing is that it's an environmental room, and she won it as Russia. And many of you people may know that Russia doesn't care about the environment. So that's it's pretty special that what she did there. For myself, the most recent conference that I was able to go to was the New York City one, and I was lucky enough to represent the USSR in a historical security council where we were dated back to 1979, and we were dealing with the issue in Iran at the time. So,
Wow.
Great knowledge of history.
Wow.
The most recent committee for me was the Security Council at UMass Lowell, and I was chosen as Angola. Pretty small country, but I'd like to say I held my own. Not as good as Anna, obviously. Our topic we were chosen to discuss was helping stop the threat of ISIL terror in the Middle East.
Great job. Great job by all of you, and you're
Congratulations. Very good.
a good example of how proud we are of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for having us, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, you're next. And
I
you-
just wanted to,
the
before they
financial update.
concluded, Ben and Dawn and Anna, every time you go up to the high school, they always just have a wonderful personality. You see them in the corridors, they're just to be complimented not only for their success with the Model United Nations, but their demeanor in general. They're just wonderful young men and one woman. So the three of you, I just want to compliment you and thank you.
Thank you.
So next, what I'd like to do is to just, before I do the financial update, just do one other update. If we could look at the school committee calendar for the month of July. I think we went over the schedule for what we have for the next few months, and I think if we could get a meeting on July 16th, we won't have need for the other two meetings. So if everybody's amenable to that.
So which date are you saying the meeting would be held at? 16th?
16th.
The 16th. And that could be just a business meeting. We can do it in the morning, excuse me, or we can do it in the afternoon.
What's the committee's pleasure?
I could do the 16th. I'd rather do just a regular general meeting than in the morning.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the rest of the meeting?
I'd rather do it early in the
I
morning.
wouldn't mind. I could do the 16th.
I would like
Morning
to.
Yes.
And that if we do a general budget,
July.
Oh, July.
then
July.
you can't put any items on the agenda.
But it's the middle of January. The budget will be done by then.
Middle of July.
Middle of
Budget's
July.
gonna be done tonight. I'll get to that in a
Uh,
minute.
It doesn't mean that we won't have any issues we want to talk about for the coming school year.
Whatever.
The only objection I have is if we have an item we want to put on the agenda, if we do a bills only meeting, then.
Well, we don't have to make it bills only. We can make it a meeting and whatever you want.
So
I'm just saying the only critical matter that we're gonna have for a vote from my side of the table.
Right.
Is bills. If you-
Alls I was pointing out is
Yeah.
if somebody has something they want to talk about before school opens.
Well, we're gonna have 2 meetings in August,
Okay.
so we'll have plenty of time, but we can still do whatever you want.
A morning meeting's obviously better for me, because I'm here anyway, but,
I can do morning.
morning? Somebody want to make a motion?
Joe, can you do morning?
Can you do morning, Joe?
Yeah. Sue?
Yes.
And Scott, you're okay with mornings as long as we can put anything on the agenda?
Um,
You make it?
not sure on that day, but let's, since the majority of the committee can,
Yes.
that's fine.
All right, July 16th in the morning.
I work at
I
the
move-
committee's
I
pleasure.
didn't ask you, Miss.
Oh, hold on. I have a trial that day. And
Oh, apparently you don't work at the committee's pleasure like I
have
do.
I have a trial. That's the third day of the trial. So
Okay.
I can do an evening.
Mara
I
said she
can-
can't make it either.
I can do an evening. I
I
can't do the
can do an
morning.
evening as well.
Evening of July 16th? Okay.
Evening of July 6th.
Sorry, guys.
7 o'clock on the 16th then of July,
Sounds good.
same
good.
as normal.
And that's the only meeting that month?
And then that's it. We'll cancel the other meetings,
Yes,
and it shouldn't be long.
this side of the table doesn't talk as much as that side of the table.
Sometimes I beg to differ with that.
Absolutely.
Everything's arguable.
Please.
We're going to argue about whether we argue. All right. All right, July 16th it is. Mr. Scully?
Okay, the next thing before us tonight is the
Well, do we need a
FY
motion
16
on that? Do we
budget.
need a motion on that?
No, I don't.
No, we don't need a motion.
The next thing before you tonight is the FY 16 budget. And the entire budget is there before you, and I gave you the sheet of the cuts that we've made, or the adjustments we've made. The mayor, John Sullivan, and myself have worked the past couple of days trying to grind these numbers out. And if you look at the last page, you can see where we ended up. So, basically, the meetings have been very, very successful. We came to you last time with asking for $70,414,663.72. We then tried to come up with the savings of X amount of dollars and cut the budget so we could handle the step raises and other things that we needed to cover under the contract. So we met with the mayor and we went over all the items plus the requirements that we're facing, the different mandates. And I want to publicly say to everybody on the school committee and the community that the mayor was spectacular. I don't know if he's changed his food diet, but he really worked very, very nicely with us. And I don't want to light that the mayor has been absolutely terrific. He worked with us, not just trying to get the bottom line number, but understand each component of the budget, and in so doing, understand the different demands that are placed around us, the mandates. He even went to Boston to help us out with the specific aspects of the budget. And today he met with us and John Sullivan. And if you look at the last page, you can see that the budget that we have is $70,163,762. It's a 3% increase. And with that in mind, I'd strongly recommend that the school committee accept the budget and move to a public hearing on the 28th of May. So,
Thank you very much for your kind words, Mr. Scully. And Mr. Scully doesn't take enough credit for himself, and he went through the budget. I've never worked with a superintendent as good as he is as far as cutting the budget goes, and many other respects also. But he saw what had to be done and worked to cut, as you can see, $1 million from the budget. I also want to thank, again, as we have before, Representative Dempsey, because without the $2.4 million that he gives to the city to help with the hail debt, we couldn't do what we're doing here, funding well over $2 million above the foundation minimum. We're able to do that for a lot of reasons, but certainly Representative Dempsey is one of them, so thank you. Mr.
and
Wood.
Mr. Mayor, I know you give me the credit, but Julie, Jonathan, and everybody in the schools have really worked with us to make these things happen, so.
Thank you so much. Mr. Wood.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, Mayor, for your support of the budget and your support of education and funding education in this budget. It's much appreciated. And I want to thank the superintendent and his administration for the work that they did of really having to go basically line by line. I sat in a meeting with the superintendent and John Sullivan as well, and we went line by line through the budget, questioning every expense and what it was, and was it needed? Was it excessive? Could we cut back? And so I wanted to thank him for that. At the last meeting, I did let the committee members know that if they wanted to, if they had ideas of tweaks for the budget, to email me. I did not receive any ideas from any members relative to that, so I don't have anything to present with that tonight. There is one tweak that we do need to make. I did speak with the superintendent as well as the city solicitor relative to it. Let me find which page it's on. It is on the last page, actually. And we did not fund in the budget the supervisor of transportation. However, that is a union position, which would need to be bargained, bargained out of the budget if we intend to disseminate those duties. So we have to, at the very least, fund it. We don't have to fill it, but the funding would have to be there. And then if the superintendent decides he wants some type of reorganization, he would need to request from the administration union an impact bargaining session in which they would need to agree to the reorganization. So the one change that we do, well, the two changes that correlate with each other on this is that we would need to fund the transportation line. It looks like we would need to fund that at $65,890.
What page, Scott?
The last page of the budget.
Yeah.
So are you proposing that as an amendment?
I'm proposing that as amendment because legally it's required that we do so, and then there'll be a second part.
So what I'd suggesting is that that we take the money out of the contractual in-town of 1.3.
We'll make one motion to first add it, and then we'll make the subsequent motions of where we're gonna to get it from. So,
well, we'll discuss it. Go ahead.
okay, so that was the first one. The reason is if you look, this budget sets up those duties to go to the Director of Student Services, which gets a 23% increase for that, to go up to 87,000. We cannot transfer union position duties to non-union personnel. It would certainly be in violation of the collective bargaining agreement and open us up for potential of grievances and litigation. So I did speak with the solicitor relative to that. He said there's a process that we can go through, but we have not gone through that process at this time in order to reflect that in the budget. So I would make the first motion to I didn't say to fill it, but to at least fund the position for now at $65,890, where it was last year, as per the advice of the solicitor and my conversation with the superintendent.
Second. Who seconded that?
I did.
Mr. Bevilacqua, did you have a comment on the motion?
Well, he's still, not on his motion, but on
Not on the
something
motion.
else.
And Ms. Danahy, did you have your light on?
Yeah, I have a question on that motion.
Okay. Go right ahead.
So does that mean we're gonna be reducing the Director of Student Services?
Yeah, that would be the
funding?
second motion.
Okay,
I just
that'll
haven't
be
got to
fine.
the reductions
Okay.
yet.
Perfect. I second that then.
I'm not completely sure I agree with it. I haven't had the chance to talk to the city solicitor. We can't transfer matters to non-union people without bargaining it. But a budget is exactly where you can do all sorts of things that you can't normally do without bargaining them. I again, I haven't researched this, I haven't given it a lot of thought, but I do not agree that we do not have to fund the Director of Transportation. And I'm not going to vote to fund a position that we're not really going to fill.
Well, I can read you his text message that came in roughly 12 minutes ago. If the position is eliminated, the union has to be told and the matter needs to be impact bargained with the unions.
That's fine.
We can always negotiate a bridge agreement with the union if
Yeah.
there's unusual circumstances.
That's absolutely, that's my understanding. If we
But we
cut-
have not done so.
Well,
We haven't eliminated.
we can cut any position that we want. The unions are not entitled to bargain over cuts. That I'm absolutely certain of.
I agree.
But whether we can transfer the work to other people is something that has to be bargained on.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Mayor.
So I don't think we have to fill
And I
this
don't
position,
know,
but-
Mr. Superintendent, do you have plans to fund this position, or are you unsure at this point?
No, I wanted to put everything in the categories so that when we go through this, that's why, because I don't want to get into 4 months from now, someone saying to me something's not in the budget.
So it's a potential that it could be funded?
It could be
Okay.
funded, could not be funded, and that's why, you know.
We'll take the money from elsewhere to balance it out?
Yeah.
Okay,
So, I mean, technically, the mayor is correct,
yeah.
that as long as we don't give the duties to someone else. So, I think that's what Mr. Cox means, Scott.
Right.
You know, you can leave the $0 there, because often when you eliminate positions, you just take the money and say the appropriation isn't there. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
I don't agree.
I believe we should cut the position. If the city solicitor advises us elsewhere, we can always add it back in. But I think we should cut it and then impact bargain that. I'm not certain, I haven't researched this, but I think we actually would have more potential liability if we left it in and then tried to transfer the positions. I think we should cut it tonight.
I disagree that there shouldn't be a supervisor of transportation.
Well, that's a different issue.
So I agree on the legal grounds, and I agree on
okay.
that somebody needs to run the transport. This is thousands of students that have,
Sure.
especially special education, and if there's nobody accountable,
Oh, well,
that's an
well,
absolute
that's a-
nightmare.
Well, that's a very, very different issue than the saying.
So it
we-
was, basically, my argument was is and the superintendent said he may fill the position. As a matter of fact, I think he posted the position.
No, what I'm saying to you is, yeah, but we're not filling the position. We
Not as
posted
of
it.
yet.
That's right. What I'm saying to you is, when we have a new budget and finance person,
Right.
that does
then-
need supervising, but my biggest problem with the transportation is not the logistical aspects of it, is the financial aspects.
Right.
And those duties, I'm gonna have the new business manager assume,
Mhm.
because that's where it rightfully belongs.
If that happens, then we can impact bargain it. No, I don't think we should put this back in.
So I'm just saying that,
I think we all, whatever, we have our different opinions on whether or not we need a.
but what I'm saying to you is, both aspects of transportation
Right.
have to be run.
Correct.
The logistical side and the financial side.
Right, somebody needs to
And
do
the financial
logistics
side,
and
in my
financial.
opinion, has not been run well for a number of
Right,
years.
which could be impact bargain is what you're saying, but somebody would still need to logistically put
Right.
together routes and do all of
Correct.
that stuff. So I believe in, I think there's money that there's money clearly in the budget that we can cut out to fund this position, so I have no problem, and I hope my colleagues support it.
Could I ask I'm sorry, I'm lit. Could I ask a question, are you recommending, Mrs. Superintendent, then that we fund this or not fund it at this point in
Well,
time?
when I met with Mr. Sullivan and we looked over everything, we thought at this particular junction, and for purposes of the budget, that tonight we not fund it,
Right.
and we can
We
always.
can always come back, can't we, and
Could
put money
always
back
come
in?
back, yes. That's why I was trying to let the issues, I want to say, mature over the whole
Right.
issue of
So
transportation.
by not funding this tonight does not preclude us from coming back to revisit this issue
That's
and putting money
correct.
back in.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Magliochetti.
What Mr. Bevilacqua said was exactly what I was going to say.
Oh,
Guess
Okay.
great minds think alike. But another thing,
you're reading my notes.
I want to make sure that if we do what Superintendent Scully and the mayor are suggesting, that we can come back and redo this. We're not precluded from doing that in any way.
No, you always have that opportunity as a school committee to add or take away anything from the budget.
But it's
Doesn't end
also-
tonight.
But it's also my understanding, based on the dialogue, that this position is going to be woven in to another position.
No, not necessarily. But the financial aspects, I have a bunch of opinions about transportation. For example, I've got a lot of buses floating around the city. For the past 2 weeks, I've been counting heads on buses at schools. And I think our transportation costs are really high. I think we can do a better job. And I've been arguing about this since I came back here. So I just want to look at how that is. But when the school committee is going to interview a business manager, many communities, their business manager has his nose, if you will, in the financial aspects of transportation. So I just want to, I put this together, recognizing the fact that we can always come back and fund the position and carve it any way you as a committee would like to do. So I'm not suggesting that we download the position onto someone else, but if we do, that's why I put, because I've had, when we had no one, when Mr. Eldridge died, I did have the individual in charge of pupil services running the transportation. So that's where I'm headed with it.
All right, any
But
further
whatever the
discussion
committee
on
does,
that?
One
fine.
other point of discussion. The budget does reflect changing the duties to a non-unit personnel. The budget reflects that. So that's why I'm saying the budget cannot reflect the transfer of those duties without us first impact bargaining it.
I don't agree with you. The
Well,
budgetary-
I haven't finished yet, I understand that, but you may not agree with me, I did ask the solicitor, on that. We did this last year, and actually, we did it with Mr. Letcher's, position. We created Mr. Letcher's position through the cuts of, 2 union positions in the same union, the administrative union. This budget, the budget that we represented though, however, we still had to include the money in the line item, even though we never filled those positions. The supervisor of language arts, and I believe the supervisor of science, if I'm
STEM.
correct.
STEM, yes.
We never filled those positions, but the money showed in the budget. And we were told at the time that when we created Mr. Letcher's position, that was how you needed to set it up. And then if you wanted to then go ahead and eventually get rid of those positions or transfer the duties to somebody else in the district, that you would then impact bargain. So that's exactly how we set, so
That
I'm
is
only
true. That
proposing
was,
how to
Mayor-
set it up exactly under the legal advice we received the last time.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that is right. That's what happened last time. But
I'm
I'm just,
familiar, now that you say it, yeah.
yeah.
So
That's-
my proposal is
I'm in
exactly
agreement.
the
We
same
have to
way.
impact bargain
Yeah,
before we
yeah.
do this. Whether we have to impact bargain before we put it in the budget is not quite so clear to me.
Yeah.
I just remember this issue
That's
so
true. You're
much
right.
with Mr.
You're right.
Letcher's position, and it
We
was
got
an
it.
issue at
You're
the
right.
time with the union.
You're right.
So.
That sounds familiar.
then-
But we can, look, either way, if we put it in the budget tonight, we can impact bargain to take it out.
You
If
can-
we don't put it in tonight, and Bill Cox says we need to, then we can always put it back in. So it's not the end of the world, whatever we do.
I just feel rather safe than sorry. That's my only opinion.
There's a motion and a second. We'll be safe. Okay, any further discussion on the motion?
No, not on the motion.
Or just on the motion? Any
Yes.
further discussion on the
So-
motion? Ms. Danahy?
So we're doing the add-in now, but we're gonna be
And then I'll
doing
make
the
a subsequent
subtraction
motion to
later.
cut
Okay,
the
just to
same
make it
funding.
clear. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, would you call the roll on the motion to add this position?
Attorney Maglio-Ketty.
Yes.
Mrs. Danahy.
Yes.
Mr. Tui.
Yes.
Mr. Bevelacqua.
No.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mayor Fiorentini.
No, motion passes. The next item, Mr.
I have a subsequent motion that we would then cut the line item relative to the Director of Student Staff from it's proposed at 87,050 and cut it to last year's number, which was 71,027.50.
Where is the,
That's on page 1 under the superintendent's office, almost at the bottom.
8, one up from the bottom.
I see it, yep.
So it's roughly a savings of, that's 16,000 of that money right there.
23%.
23%.
Mr. Superintendent, any comments on that motion?
Nope.
You're in agreement with it?
May I just ask, where will that money go to?
Funding the position we just put back in the budget.
Again, I think to make it, as Mr. Wood is suggesting, kosher, that you have to do that. I think down the road, though, we really need to look at the necessity of that position.
I don't think anyone's disagreeing. I don't disagree personally.
Well, when you say look at the necessity of that position, you're saying we could eliminate the whole position?
I'm saying we could, well, there's two responsibilities. The logistical aspect, which is, making sure we have X amount of buses,
Yep.
and there's the financial aspect. So, I want to wait till we get a new business manager on board and listen to what he has to say, or she, and then make that
No.
decision if we go forth.
I absolutely agree with you, as you know, but I'm talking about the position where Mr. Wood says we can cut the budget, the Director of Student Staff Services.
Yeah, we put extra money in there, because part of my thinking when I worked with John on this, Mayor, was if I take some of the money, I wanted to take some of the money from the transportation services and pay someone to manage the student part. I was gonna have Mr. Rooney do that, because he's been doing it, and then.
I get it, okay.
Okay?
All right.
So I'll make that as a motion.
Well, I think if we did the first one, which I didn't agree with, we have to do the second one.
Yeah.
So call the roll.
I need Scott to repeat it because of the figures I didn't.
So Director of Student Staff cut it from the proposal of
Say it.
87,050 to
Thank you.
the, what the exact salary was in FY15 of 71,027 and 50 cents.
Thank you. Attorney Magliochetti.
Yes.
Mrs. Danahy.
Yes.
Mr. Tui.
Yes.
Mr. Bevelacqua.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mayor Fiorentini.
Yes, motion passes.
And then that leaves us with 49,000 that we need to get. Mr. Superintendent, you suggested that came from the contracted, what was your suggestion?
The contracted transportation,
In town.
In town?
Town.
yes.
Okay.
$1,399,702.
So I would move that we cut the transportation contracted in-town budget by a total of $49,000.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Attorney Magliochetti.
Yes.
Mrs. Danahy.
Yes.
Mr. Tui.
Yes.
Mr. Bevelacqua.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mayor Fiorentini.
Yes, motion passes. Any further motions, Mr. Wood?
I did have a question for the superintendent. Actually, only one question that I noticed relative to the Silver Hill principal salary.
Mhm.
I saw that that's an increase of 4% when none of our other principals are getting that increase. I think our other
I have to,
principals.
that was taken, I don't have my notes on everybody's salary, but, wait a minute, I may have that.
The only reason why I asked is I know this has been a concern when I was school committee president before, that they went and negotiated a contract, but they did need the school committee's approval in order to give those types of raises. And I don't want to approve a budget that would give them that approval. Only one principal in the district that approval.
There was, wait a minute, I may have it here, Scott. Contract annuity cost.
You say
I
so-
don't have, wait a minute, I might have it, just
Silver
give me
Hill.
1 second.
This is contractual.
The point I'm making is that it's not contractual, it's a proposal that their board has in order to give their principal a increase, which we have before said no to when we were not giving it to our principals. I think that if our principals are in line this year for a 1% increase according to the contract that they have, if only one other principal in the district, I would say that it should be aligned with what every principal's getting and not one person should.
I'm sorry, I don't have the detail tonight. I know I went over this with John Sullivan, Scott, because you asked me, and we pulled out the contract, and we went through it, and I honestly don't know the number that came up, so.
Okay. I know that they were obviously proposing an increase.
No, but all of these salaries were based on actuals rather than suggested, so.
Okay, because it does look like that last year we budgeted $90,188. This year there would be a 4% increase that would bring that up to $93,480. And
We
then I
built
was-
in, if you remember, we built in some percentages.
Yes, we
that
did,
we
and
were
that's
gonna
why I was
talk about.
comparing it with all the other principals,
Yeah.
if you go through.
But that's greater than the 4% is what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah, because the other principals are only getting 1%.
Right.
But the Horace Mann Charter School is a different fish.
Absolutely, but they still, relative to the principal's contract, we had a legal ruling on this before when I was.
We can vote on it, absolutely.
Absolutely, it's still,
I agree.
we still have to fund it.
Yes, we do.
So I get that it's different, but I don't believe that one principal's doing anything, should be singled out as working harder than every other principal in the district. I
No,
don't think
I
that's
understand
fair.
that, but I'm saying to you, there's, like, a piece of it is for Title I. That, because a charter school is entitled to have their own Title I director.
Mhm.
And the state says that because he gave it to the previous principals at the school, they get Title I money. So I
Mhm.
think it's about a $5,000 they get for running Title I.
Right, but wouldn't have that been calculated with last year's salary, though? That's what I'm
I think it
confused
was
about.
added, I think it was added this year, Scott. I just don't have the detail in front of me. I think it was added this year. I don't think it was in there last year. I think she may have received it, but I don't think it was budgeted correctly.
Okay.
Can we finalize this at the public hearing, before the public hearing on the 28th?
Yeah, could I ask that?
Sure,
Because
whatever you want.
before we finalize the budget, could we
Sure.
get I understand we're moving forward tonight, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to move forward
Yeah.
tonight, but we can always change it at the public hearing.
Yep.
That, I just want to make sure that we're not doing for one what we're not doing for everybody else in the district. I don't want to send that message, me individually.
It depends on how we want to treat the Horace Mann Charter School. Do we want to treat it as,
A private school?
no, do we want to treat it as a charter school, or do we want to treat it as all of our other schools?
I believe that
Of course, not a private school.
well,
Because it's funded with public dollars, and it's a
I believe it's a public school, and it should be treated as every other,
public school.
yes.
For example, like the Hillville Montessori Public School.
I don't know. That's a good one, but,
That's the issue with, these things are neither fish nor fowl. That's the issue with these charter schools, with this type of charter school.
Right.
It is subject to, unlike the Commonwealth charter schools, which are subject to no oversight whatsoever by elected bodies, these are subject, but they still are charter schools. They have a board of directors which set their budget. I'm okay with this, even though it treats the other principals a little bit differently. They get the same budget per dollar as every other school, and if their board of directors says, we want to allocate things a little bit differently, I'm okay with it. That's what Commonwealth charter schools are all about. That's what Horace Mann charter schools are all about. But I understand the philosophical difference. If you say, no, they should be treated like every other school, that's your right, that's fine.
that's just, certainly my opinion.
Philosophical difference.
And I want to point out just one thing before I let Mr. Bevelak, I think, was going, is there, we did level fund most of our schools, like, Pentucket Lake and all of those schools. And we had said that, or we're supposed to fund every school, the same, et cetera. This budget is certainly, relative to Silver Hill, is a 2% budget increase. Bradford Elementary, total, is a negative 1% increase.
That's a very different.
Golden Hill School,
The reason for that,
0%.
The reason
Pentucket
for
Lake,
that-
0.
the reason for that is that the charter schools are supposed to be funded on a per pupil basis. And
But-
Haverhill hasn't been doing that.
I had always believed that it was supposed to be in line with what you were spending on all of the others. It had to be in line
Well, it had to
with
be,
the
no.
same thing of the other schools.
It's on a per pupil basis. And the average, no matter what you spend on another school, the state ruling is that if you spend $100 per child across the district, then you have to take the number of students at a charter school and give them $100 per student. So it really has no bearing on what you're spending in another school. It's the per pupil cost.
So the information that we had received before, that their funding had to be the same as,
That-
basically,
I've
not the
never-
same,
I've
but
never heard that before.
that was what that it had to be, if there was an increase, that they would have to receive the same type
I
of
don't
increase
know who
that
said
all of
that,
the other
'cause
districts
that's
did.
inaccurate. That's not the
That's
the law or
not the
reg.
case?
No, it's per pupil, Scott. It really is per
And
pupil.
you're saying it hasn't been per pupil?
Well, it was and it wasn't. We get faulted, if you remember.
Been close, obviously.
Yeah, it was close. 3 or 4 years ago, we were faulted
by them.
Well, also by the state mayor, but the charter school came to us
Okay.
and said our numbers are off. I forget, and we adjusted and we made it fair, and the state said okay. And then I think last year we underfunded them, and partly because it was complicated. The reason we underfunded them, there was a class in there that the state wasn't counting. So in our eyes, we were accurate, but in the state's eyes, we weren't accurate.
The only general point that I want to make and is that budget is increasing $106,000 to the bottom line. When you go through and look up the other schools, Bradford Elementary is down 1%, Pentucket Lake is being cut down 3%, Golden Hill School level funded. I just think that when I get what you're saying of the requirements, and I'm not disagreeing with you there, but I'm talking about what's fair and equitable to all students in our district, not just one group of students. I believe in fairness to all of our
I understand.
kids.
But
And
again, you can't, it's like looking at someone's salary. Someone has longevity, someone doesn't have longevity. So there's a lot of factors that go in to each school's budget.
I agree. I just think that at the end of
So
the
to use
day,
percentages,
this is a public school. I
understand.
understand why it is. I didn't
Yeah.
vote for it to be the way that it is.
Yeah.
And this was part of the reason why I didn't, is because I was worried that we would rob Peter to pay Paul, that some people would get extra resources while we could not provide the same resources to other public schools. And that's what this shows me. And that was my biggest concern.
but again, I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you, but what Mr. Sullivan has done is try to follow every
No,
single
I
mandate.
agree that he's trying
So
to do that.
Do it so it's kosher, that's the whole attempt.
My point is different.
I get it.
No, your points are the same. You're both saying they should be equally and fairly funded.
Yeah.
It's just a question of what's the right number.
Right.
Mr. Bevelak, I'm sorry, Mr. Magliochetti.
Thank you. I actually think you're both right. I think that Mr. Scully's right when he says the funding is based on per pupil, and I think what Mr. Wood said is correct, that the increase needs to be consistent with what's throughout the rest of the district. But I think that Mr. Wood's talking in the aggregate, and Mr. Scully's talking by the individual pupil, and I think that's where the
Sure.
discrepancy
But it
lies.
changes. See, like, just for a second, on the SPED case, we have to put 2 more SPED teachers over there. So that automatically drives the number up. That's
I
one of
understand.
the issues that you face in the urban school systems, is that all the numbers get skewed depending on it's no longer called bilingual, but if you have bilingual education, you have 1 teacher for 18 students under the statute. Okay? So, and in SPED, you may have 1 for 7. So if you take a school X and you put 4 bilingual teachers and 2 SPED teachers, right away, you throw off the per pupil or whatever the bottom line dollars are. You throw it off.
I understand, but you gotta go by the state formula, whatever that
Yeah,
is, and that's what's causing the issue here. So I don't have a problem with the increase, because I'm sure that's the explanation for it, and I think it's something we're legally obligated to do.
But we'll research it more to make sure we're consistent.
And it won't be too late to make the change at the
No.
next meeting.
Nope,
All right.
not at all.
That's what thank you.
Did you have a motion that you made on this, Mr. Wood?
No, I didn't. I just asked for, and I don't think I need a motion to ask the superintendent relative to the principal's salary and.
Absolutely not. But you weren't making any motion?
Nope.
Mr. Bevelak?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to just note that although I didn't communicate to Mr. Wood directly, I did have 3 conversations with the superintendent regarding the budget. We went over a number of initiatives and a number of issues. I also want to say thank you to the mayor, because in the discussions we had with the mayor, I think, provided some great insight in terms of where we may be able to provide some additional funding and where we may be able to provide an opportunity to conserve some funds. And one thing that we noted based on this budget reduction sheet is that we made cuts with the school department of over $1 million in terms of the last discussion we had. I think that's very, very important to note. But the budget I've always viewed as a fluid document. It's only set in time at one point in time. That's the time you vote on it. We have the opportunity to come back to the budget at any point in time in the course of the year to look at things, to make sure that it's meeting the goals that we're trying to meet, and that, in fact, that we're utilizing it to the best advantage, both in terms of the financial and the human resources. So I support this budget that's brought before us. You know, it literally is, in today's day and age, to have only 3% increase, I think, is absolutely tremendous. You know, obviously, we'd all like to see it be level funded, but that's unrealistic because of the contracts that have been signed and the costs that we know are going to increase. But it's a reasonable budget in today's day and age in terms of the costs, in terms of the allocation of both human and financial resources. And again, I want to just note from my perspective that whenever I do vote on a budget, I view it as a fluid document that gives me the opportunity to go back in the course of the year and adjust it wherever appropriate. So thank you.
Mr. Macri, okay?
Thank you. Yeah, I want to
Oh,
commend.
I'm sorry, was that you that had your light on?
I want
That's fine.
I want to commend the superintendent on making over $1 million in cuts and working together with us on that. I met with Superintendent Scully and John one afternoon to kind of go over some issues. But a couple things I just want to point out here, and that I really laud him for, and that's the transfer of eligible new hires in 2015 to a Title I grant in the amount of $200,000. This is something that I bring up repeatedly. Are we maximizing the use of federal monies and federal grants? And that shows that they sharpened their pencils a little bit and found another $200,000 to help us out. So thank you for doing that. I do have a couple of concerns about the cuts, but I'm sure that's nothing that we can't deal with along the way. And make necessary changes as they come. But I think the people should be aware that, to cut over $1 million out of the tight budget that we already have is no easy task. But we're doing it. We're keeping us going in the right direction, and we're balancing the budget the way we're supposed to do. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for finding the additional funds that we needed to keep us going in the right direction.
Technology money helped.
Yeah.
Mr. Tui.
Yeah, I also want to thank the mayor and superintendent for a job well done on cutting and, as all my colleagues have mentioned, providing additional resources. Appreciate that. Just I want to talk about briefly, echoing what Mr. Wu was saying about being equitable on principles, and maybe for a future discussion. But Scott was mentioning, Mrs. Scully, about the 1%, but I'm looking through real quick, and as he mentioned, the 4%. I see a couple others at 4%. Is that something that it's?
As I said, it could be longevity. I don't have the detailed information in front of me.
All right.
But there's an issue in executive session that we can go into. But
yeah, I'm just saying that's not the only one, and I just wanted to make sure that
no, there's
I can get clarification
again,
on
John,
that maybe a later date.
John has taken, what costs are and what the projection increase is, and for whatever the reason may be.
Okay, because I'm seeing a couple at 4% is what I'm saying
Yeah.
going through here. So I just want to make sure if I can get further clarification. The other item on is the director, sped director. I'm looking at an 11% increase. Is that accurate?
I don't know what that's for. I can't. I don't know what's built into that.
It says FY15 budget 94,693. FY15 projected expense 113,364. FY16 proposed 105. Percentage change 11%. So if you can get back to me on that,
Yeah,
I
will
don't
on those
expect
two.
you tonight,
Yep,
but
I have
I'd
it.
appreciate that as well.
Yep.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing to the committee, though, not with in reference to your questions. I mean, if when we're building this budget, I am holding the people accountable to meet these numbers. So once we get into the school year, I don't want to play a charades game. I don't mean this disrespectfully, but calling me up saying, can you move Charlie here and that, because I am really holding the people accountable for what we've got in this budget. Because if we're going to make this work, because the budget for some time, in my opinion, has been a charades game. And I think we've worked closely with the mayor and the mayor's staff to make sure that we have this budget that's accurate and factual, and it's been based on hard data of what we've spent this past year. So, I mean, the data is accurate. As I said, I sat with John Sullivan. Any of you are welcome to come in and look at John when he's here and to see how deep down we've dug into the cost. So I'm putting the principals and every responsibility center administrator on notice that we are holding them accountable for the budget, because I don't want at the end of the year come to you on a deficit. And the biggest area we have is a problem is sped. And the sped costs are out of our control, much of it. So that's why I had to cut the 3 sector supervisors. As I said in, I think, the newspaper article today, I'm going to be going through the school system and look at who's working and getting performances. If we're not getting the results we want, we're going to make the changes. If we're going to run this successfully, whether it be with the finances or the academics, the people that aren't performing and they've been sitting back and think it's just business as usual, it's not going to be. We're going to make it work, and I think we owe the kids in the city. I owe that. That's what you've hired me to do as a superintendent, and that's what we're going to do.
Ms. Ryan Chiadello.
Thank you, Mayor, for your input at the last budget meeting that we had. It was very insightful, and thank you for the funds that you provided. much appreciated, and I'd like to thank the superintendent for this budget. In the past, I know that you've never received, the school committee, from what I've heard, has never seen budgets like this. So this is my first time seeing a budget like this, line by line. It's very clear and cut. I think he's done an excellent job explaining, where the money's going, and anytime there was someone caught something that was caught, it was corrected immediately. And I'd also like to commend you on, since we last met, just that in that short period of time, the $1 million cut that you came up with was great, and that's going to help us. And this is a very tedious task, and we've been going line by line, going over this, and so I just want to commend you on what you've done. An excellent job, you and your administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Danahy.
Thank you. I too want to say thank you for all your hard work. I know this takes a lot of effort, and I'm sure that a lot of headaches as well. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your contributions as well. I do have a couple of questions. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of business analysts, business payroll specialists, and my concern is this. I see an increase here of 1.25 in the positioning. It went up 50%. I see another business.
Oh, give me one at a time. Give me the one that went up 50%.
The business manager.
Okay,
which we
now
do
John
not
Sullivan was at, let me just take that piece by piece.
Sure.
He was here before you at the last meeting.
Right.
You're only paying someone $80,000. He explained to you that if his recommendation is that that be $120,000 minimum.
That's to hire a full-time point of information. That's to
That's
hire,
right.
we have a part-time business manager. We're hiring
That's
a
right.
full-time business manager.
So all of these recommendations on the business department
Right.
have come from Mr. Sullivan.
I
I'm just trying to explain how it
Yeah,
worked,
oh,
though,
yeah,
Susan,
okay.
just so you'll know. So, we had a part-time person. If we're gonna keep running it like we did, we're always gonna be in a mess. So that's why we asked Mr. Sullivan to design the department as he thinks it should be run, and that's what those numbers reflect.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, except that I'm still concerned about the business analyst position, that it did go down. If these are key roles, I want them properly funded. That's
Yeah,
my concern.
They are.
All right. And then the other, and again, I know that there are people in these roles currently, but my
Some may
hope
not
is
be
that-
here after
okay.
June 30th.
Okay. It is what it is. The other thing too that I noticed was a business accountant, that's going up as well by 9%. So there's a considerable increase in the business department, which is
we've had-
okay,
yeah,
but I want to make sure
But again, the
that-
numbers that you've received in the past aren't necessarily accurate.
Okay.
There's been people doing some of these functions. Whether they've been doing well or not is a different question.
That's,
But I want to be very definitive. I want to stop this. Who did it? I want to stop this.
yeah.
Because that's what happens now. What happened? That's how it happened. If you have the responsibility, you're going to bear the burden. So that's where we're going with this.
And next question was the stipends HR. I see that it's zero, it's level funded, but I'm just not sure what that was.
I'm not sure. What item is it?
Stipends HR. If we have a director of
What
student
page
and
was it?
staff services, it's on page, I guess, 2
Two, right?
at the top.
Okay.
8,000?
8,000?
So,
Yeah,
It's funded, right?
it's level funded. I'm just wondering what that is. I mean, if we, if,
I think that's the stipend that goes to Denise to handle workers' comp.
It is. That's right.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
right,
yeah.
man.
Some of
Very
that
good.
other stuff, yeah.
Very good. You did listen.
okay.
I forgot.
That's once.
No, you were good this week. I still questioned your staff on what's going on. You were so good. But you're right. It's 8,000. That goes
Okay.
upstairs.
All right, okay.
That goes to the Jimmy Fund. Let's put it that way. But we just never say which Jimmy.
All right. And I do want to just make a point of clarification. There does seem to be to me anyway, it looks like there's equitable funding of all of the principal salaries. It seems like they're all in line regardless of what the percentage looks like,
Yeah.
it does look like we have actually brought that Silver Hill principal in line with the other elementary
Yeah.
school principals, and so that's
But there
why
are
I
there are
support
some other
that.
things in there, Susan, like, what Scott questioned there. I know there was a question last year, and it wasn't funded, the Title I allotment that they're supposed to get. I don't think we gave it, and I think we agreed to do it, and I don't think, it never went to the school committee for a vote.
That's a problem. If we make a
You know,
promise to do something, we
yeah.
need to stick
So,
with it,
yeah.
and so that,
Yeah.
and find monies to do it, and budget it
Yeah,
year over year.
but it wasn't,
so that
so we
it's-
did it. Scott, I don't know if you heard what I said. During the year, it came up, I think it was in the late fall or early spring, or late midwinter, that we did not give it the Title I funding, that we would do it. It came up around the holidays, I remember. And I should have actually came to the school committee to tell you that, but it was done in the past, and then it was omitted last year. Why, I don't know. So to make it right and be agreement with the state, we would give it the Title I appropriation. I should have brought it to the school committee.
And also questioning, the report that we did, agree to fund about 2 or 3 months ago regarding the special ed with, the special ed assessment, I think, or some kind of evaluation that was
Yeah,
gonna be
that's-
happening.
that's
Is that a
due.
report that's gonna be coming
Yep,
to us
hopefully.
soon? So
Yep,
that we can
yes, I hope so.
sort of have more,
Yep.
clarity on what we're looking at in terms of the special ed
Yep.
department as well.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Magliochetti.
Thank you. Just one final comment. I just want the public to realize something, and another thing I laud the superintendent for. Of these 1.1 million in cuts, none of it came out of the classroom.
That's correct.
It's all administrative, and I think that's very important, because, we really do value the teachers in this community greatly. And I think that when you look at the kinds of cuts that we made the teachers in the classrooms a priority, and we didn't touch them when it came to making the cuts, so.
The problem I have is when we need additional staff next year, that's going to be the challenge. So even though this is a budget, I've got to, if, we put 20,000 in the electrical account, May shuts the lights off at 1 o'clock in the afternoon so we can get the new teachers, but we'll make it work.
I wonder what this bill's gonna be with the new lighting.
I know.
That's, don't worry, that guy Jimmy I referenced, he'll charge us, back charges for every meeting.
For the hour.
All right, well, thank you. I just
Quick
thought it was
meetings.
important that we point that out, that
But I
none of this
again
money
wanna-
came out of the classroom.
I just want to point out again, I don't want to patronize him, but sincerely, I mean, the mayor today was busy with other things, and he came over and talked to John and I, and he called me 3 or 4 times. He calls me at night. He's trying to, he really, really and truly was very, very helpful, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never seen a mayor get so involved in making sure we had the right money, so I've got to be a good boy for a year and leave him alone.
I would make a motion that we accept the 2016 budget as we have amended tonight.
Second.
Any discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Can I just make one comment? Just, so I'm going to, and I may have this before the hearing, I've got to check on that, things that you asked me,
Yep.
those things with Silver Hill.
Special education.
Sean is sped.
Yep.
Sean, you had the sped director, and we'll go through that. So
Thank
I'll
you.
get those answers for everybody.
Would you call the roll, please?
Attorney Magliochetti.
Yes.
Mrs. Danahy.
Yes.
Mr. Tui.
Yes.
Mr. Bevelacqua.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Mayor Fiorentini.
Yes. Let me offer my comments. I want to thank everybody for their very kind words, the superintendent and all of you. We all do the best we can for public education. The bottom line, though, is that unless we, as a community and the state, do a better job of controlling sped costs, there is no amount of additional funding that I can get out of the city or that Representative Dempsey can get unless he brings the entire state budget to Haverhill, which I would like to do. That is going to work. About a decade ago, I was on the city council when the Hale Hospital crisis was beginning to hit. And this sped crisis reminds me a great deal of that. And I remember one of the councilors saying that unless we get these costs under control, ultimately we will close fire stations and lay off police officers to pay for a hospital debt. Well, today, SPED is the same situation. SPED costs are up $3 million. 29% increase. Now, when you can only increase our funding source by 2.5%, if one big item goes up by 29.5%, we have a problem, and we all know that. It is a similar problem to what we had a decade and a half ago, and we have to get it under control. There's no easy way to do that, but we have to do it. As part of the Mayor's Association, we'll be approaching the governor and ask him to form a task force on reducing sped costs. I personally liked what Ms. Danahy said, that we have to control the costs of the vendors. Now, I know that the term controlling costs always gets sped parents nervous, and I don't blame them. If I had a special ed child, I'd be nervous at those terms, too. But when we had a national health care crisis with health care costs going out of control, and we had to control those costs, no one suggested that we control them by telling cancer patients they couldn't get treatment, or by telling sick people they couldn't go to hospitals. We control those costs as a nation and as a state and as a city by controlling vendors, by limiting what people could do, by doing what Walmart did and setting up centers of excellence to get second opinions. That's the type of thing that we have to do with SPED. Nationwide, the number of kids on special education is 11%. We follow the federal standard in Massachusetts. We're at about 18% of our kids on special ed. In Haverhill, it's 27%. I know the superintendent is doing a study, has hired an outside consultant. We did this before with Futures. We elected not to follow their recommendations. We're going to have some tough decisions to make in the future, and we have to make them. Thank you all very much again for your kind words. And I'll be talking a good deal about the budget, about special ed, about schools. I have some proposals I'll be unveiling Tuesday night at my own, when I unveil my own budget. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with you, and I thank you for your thoughts. One area where I'm continually amazed is the fact that we receive so little funding from the federal government. And I would encourage you in your association to not just talk to the government, but also to try to get the federal government to understand that this is really a national crisis that's happening across the country. I read about other cities and towns. I read about other school districts. It's not just happening here in the city of Haverhill or Massachusetts. And if we could find some additional dollars coming to us for this particular reason, for this purpose from the federal government, it would alleviate the concern that we have, because no one wants to cut services. We all recognize that. But we just simply can't go on with the impact that it has, because it's unmanageable, it's unplannable, and it's unimplemented to be able to do so. So I encourage you to work with your association, and thank you for that. And
Well, we'll take a look at that, but I don't think that's going to happen on the federal level. They're cutting things, not adding.
I understand.
We're going to be very lucky on the federal level if they can get a transportation funding bill passed.
Right.
So that bridges that go in and out of communities don't collapse.
And you know, one thing, Mr. Mayor, we haven't recognized you for your leadership as the new president of the Mass Mayor's Association. And I think we should recognize that, because that gives us an opportunity to literally lead the state in terms of new initiatives. And I for one want to apologize for not doing that earlier, but I also want to commend you because of the fact that your peers have recognized you as the leader of the association, and I know that it's going to bring good things for the city of Haverhill.
Thank you so much. Thank you all again. If I could ask you, Mr. Wood, to take over. And, thank you very much. Thank you again for all your kind words. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. Superintendent, did you have anything else, Mr. Superintendent?
No, we got the school committee meeting hand. Oh, the business manager position. We got the applications in. I gave them over to John Sullivan. He's doing a pre-screening. I'll be in touch with you next week, Mr. Wood.
To
We can set up a committee together and get it going.
All right, yeah. Call me and we'll get that committee set up so that we can move forward with that, and hopefully we have
I
some.
think we have about 12 I didn't read them, but I
hopefully
thought I
there's
saw
some-
about 12,
some good
15
qualified
names.
people in the bunch.
I'm not sure, but I know we got about 12, 15 names.
Okay. And that's it for you, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Bevilacqua, energy conservation at school
stepped out.
buildings.
He stepped out.
Stepped
Okay.
out to chase down the mayor.
Next item on the agenda would be Attorney Magliacchetti, update on FERPA investigation. Attorney
Yeah.
Magliacchetti.
I sent a letter to Superintendent Scully. I had asked that the principal of the high school be here to give us an update. Is it the Night of Stars that kept her from being here tonight?
No. Your matters, Mr. Magliacchetti, update on the investigation. First of all, it's been a review of, we haven't done an investigation. We've done a review of what's been going on. The Attorney General is not involved, but I don't want to comment any further. My suggestion would be that you send this to the have the city solicitor respond to these questions. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't have access to the West legal information that you do, so my recommendation to the school committee that this be referred to legal counsel for review.
Well, I mean, with regard to the review,
Mm-hmm.
the FERPA law is, it's a very strict law, first of all. And what it is it's part of the federal funding, the federal government funding to public schools. If you want to get federal funding, federal grants, there are certain things that you have to comply with in order to qualify for these grants. And FERPA is one of those requirements. The requirements are spelled out, and the details of FERPA are spelled out. And FERPA requires that the public schools in every community comply with certain things. And as part of a review, you would think that we would be reviewing that we are in compliance with the requirements of FERPA. That has nothing to do with legal counsel or Westlaw or anything like that. My question is, FERPA has certain requirements. Now, it's my understanding that as part of the review, there was, for the first time I was told, there was a FERPA training, if you will, for employees in the Haverhill Public Schools. Now, it's my understanding that's supposed to be done annually. It's also my understanding that parents of Haverhill Public School students are supposed to receive notice of FERPA and the law annually. I've never received anything about FERPA as a parent of someone in the Haverhill Public Schools. Furthermore, it's been stated in the as part of the review that, you know, if anyone is found to be in violation, they could be subject to very strict federal and state laws. Now, it's my understanding of FERPA that an individual instance does not violate FERPA. FERPA applies to policy. We, as a school committee, are directly responsible for policies in our school system. And this is what triggered my interest and my concern when the issue of FERPA was raised. Now, to do a review of FERPA, I mean, first of all, someone has to complain to the Secretary of Education of the United States government to trigger an investigation or to trigger a violation of FERPA. This issue arose back in the March 6th meeting when you gave us a copy of a printout that someone at Haverhill High School had generated that had the class ranks of 2 individuals on it, and that's what triggered the review of FERPA, and also 603 CMR 23, which is the Massachusetts code that relates to FERPA. Now, the law is very clear that one instance does not create a violation of FERPA, and that if you have an individual, whether it's a teacher or a guidance counselor or someone like that, that put that list out, that in and of itself is not a violation of FERPA or CMR 23. What would be a violation is if we have policies in place or a lack of policies that would allow student information to be circulated to third parties. And again, that is my concern, and that is the reason I requested this to be on here. I want to know what policies we have in place that are compliant with FERPA, and I want to know that the principal of the high school and the superintendent's office, because you're the 2 people that are charged with complying with FERPA are complying with the federal law as well as the state law. It's very clear in 603 CMR 23 that at the high school level, the principal of the school is charged with being responsible for the records. And for any old records, the superintendent of schools, any old records maintained at the central office is under the charge of the superintendent of schools. Now, there was a letter that was circulated to certain people that were reviewed, and it was sent by you, Mr. Scully, and it was on Haverhill School Committee letterhead, which suggested that the review was something that we are involved with. I never was informed of any actions to be taken. If anything goes out on Haverhill School Committee letterhead, I, for one, would like to be informed about it.
Well, let me just interrupt you, Mr. Magliacchetti. I'm not sure what the letterhead was, to be honest with you.
I have a copy right
that's
here.
That's fine. You're welcome to have your copies. But I did sign any letter that has my signature, I take full responsibility for.
That's fine.
So whether it came out from, I don't know what the letterhead was.
But it's...
Can I just finish?
Yeah.
The principal is responsible, and I recognize that. But again, as I said to you, I don't want to get into a debate tonight. I don't understand. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know CMR 23. I don't know all the components of FERPA. We pay people to interpret these things for us and advise us that they're under your jurisdiction. My recommendation, as I said earlier, that you have legal counsel in that represents you people and respond to these things.
Okay, but just as a point of information, you are supposed to know FERPA and CMR 603 CMR 23.
Right.
You and the principal of the high school are supposed to educate us about it, and you're supposed to educate the public about it.
Right.
That's another concern, what you just said.
Well,
and
so noted.
I have another concern, and that is under what circumstances the FERPA and CMR 23 both state that the only people that can access a student's records at the high school are either the student or the parent. And the issue arose because someone circulated this one document with two names, and it was not authorized by the parent or the student. My question is, I don't know of any situation where a parent or a student cannot request information about that student. If one of my children is at Haverhill High School and they get written up for some reason, they're punished for some reason or they get in trouble, I have a right to request whatever the teacher or counselor or principal wrote up about my child. Is that correct?
I believe it is.
Okay. Is there any situation that you can think of where a parent would not have the right to request something that's documented in the student's file about that child?
Not that I can think of tonight.
Okay. We received an email earlier tonight about some students that got written up during an AP exam.
Oh, Mr. Magliacchetti.
Well, hold on. Let me finish what I'm going to say.
I'd be happy
The
to.
request was made to someone.
Just, are we staying on?
We're staying on top. It's about this.
okay.
It's about FERPA.
That's what,
A
I'm
request
asking.
was made by a parent to see what was written up about the child. The parent was denied the right to see what was written up about the child. I don't understand. It's this federal law. This issue was brought up by you, Mr. Superintendent, at the March 6th meeting.
Can I just interrupt you, Mr.
And
Magliacchetti?
why was that information not provided to the parent? That's
Okay.
my question.
Mr. Magliacchetti.
Yes.
First of all, I'm going to say for the third time, then I'm going to be quiet. This is matter for the legal counsel for the school committee.
It is not.
Can
This
I?
is a
Can I?
matter. It's in the
Mr.
law.
Magliacchetti, can I finish?
One at a time, one at a time.
Listen, Mr. Magliacchetti.
Yes, sir.
I understand your interest, but at least give me the courtesy and respect
I will.
of answering
Mr.
you,
Superintendent.
okay?
Yes.
You understand the law. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to play a legal game with you tonight. So give me the courtesy as a superintendent to respond.
Mr. Superintendent, you have the floor to respond to what Attorney
Now,
Magliacchetti just
there's
said.
also a policy, Mr. Magliacchetti, in the school committee that when you, as a school committee member, get such complaints like this, that you refer them to the superintendent. And with all due respect, for some reason, you have a constituency that goes to you, and it never comes to me till I come to a school committee meeting. So before you sit here tonight and chastise me about breaking policy, can I? If you wanna talk, go
I
ahead.
didn't chastise you.
Again, one at a time,
I-
please.
I
We're
said-
not getting any, hold on.
I said
Hold on,
someone at
hold
the high
on.
school. Someone at the high school, not you.
Hold on. If both of you are going to talk at the same time, then nobody at home can hear it.
It
Neither
was
one,
a point,
no one up
of
here
information,
can hear
President
it.
Wood. It was a point of information.
I did not hear a point of information call. Can we just have a respectful dialogue between two adults, please, speaking one at a time?
As I tried to say, there is a policy, everybody on this committee, if they get an issue, and it happens weekly, they always respectfully bring it to me. I, for some reason, don't get these issues from you till I come to the school committee table. I have no clue what you're talking about. I'm not going to address it. I am not going to violate any student's rights or any employee's rights till whoever is making the complaint to you follows the process that you as a school committee member agreed to when you became a school committee member. So with that, I have no additional comment. I'd say, again, I think the legal counsel ought to be here. And with all due respect to the students and teachers involved, I am not going to publicly comment because I have no clue about what you're talking about.
Attorney Maglica, you can have the floor. I honestly don't know what you're referring to either. I didn't get it. I don't know, so.
Okay, well, I sent a letter requesting this, and then I sent a follow-up letter with more specifics to Mr. Scully, because at his request, he said to let him know exactly what I wanted, and I did it. I should have sent it to the whole committee. I apologize. I will make sure you get a copy of it, as well as the
They all
letter that
do.
was, as
They all
well
have
as the letter that was sent by Mr. Scully on behalf of the school committee about the quote-unquote review.
Well, just for the record, the school committee as president, I can say that to my knowledge, and I'm the president of the committee, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, the school committee didn't engage in any vote for a review of anything. I want to make that
That's
clear for the record.
absolutely correct.
As the president of the committee, I did
Correct.
not sign anything. I'm not aware of
Well,
any vote. I just want to make that clear. I don't know.
I agree, but the
Okay.
letter was sent on our letterhead.
Okay, I don't know about that either, but.
So, as part of the record, we're the responsible party for this review because of the way it was executed. And I think that's an important point to point out, what you just said. Now, I still have a problem with the fact that a parent asked for information about his or her child. It was an email that I received. I had assumed it had been sent to the entire school committee and the superintendent. I apologize if it was not. I will circulate it to everyone if the parent says it's okay. I thought everyone had received it. So as far as being sandbagged, I had no intention of sandbagging anyone. Mr. Scully, I did forward you. I got communicated by someone yesterday. I was notified by someone. I sent an email to the entire committee and to Mr. Scully. Mr. Scully responded to me, and I told him, fine, I'm good with it. He gave me a response, and I was happy with it. And I told him that. This other email came to me late this afternoon.
Okay, so I think you can respect.
I thought it went to everyone. I honestly did.
I think, Mr. Maglicetti, one thing you may disagree with me on, and I'm not sure what your purposes are, but I think you have to understand that by law, you're a lawyer, that I have to respect the rights of the employees and the rights of the parents, and I try to follow the school committee policy. And when you hear of things like this, I know nothing about it, and I've been up to the high school all day, so I have no clue. And for some reason, these things have a habit of arriving at 5 o'clock at night.
I
But
can't
I never
help that.
get them.
I can show you my. If you don't believe me, I'll show you my phone. I'll give you my phone. You can see it.
Calm down, Mr. Maglicetti.
But listen, my
please.
point is this: we need to know about FERPA and 603 CMR 23.
That's
If you
why-
want Bill Cox to come up here, that's fine. But my problem is the law states that the superintendent and the principal of the high school are supposed to be the authority. They're the authority not only on the law, but on implementing it in our district.
Well, we do. And the legal counsel can address that for you.
Well, you just said that you don't know how to answer the questions.
I never said that. I just said I'm not a lawyer. I can't answer the detail you're asking for.
All I'm asking for is what does FERPA state? What are the elements of FERPA? That's not nothing legal. That's not a legal
Mr.
case.
Maglicetti, for the 5th time, you pay legal counsel. I'm not a lawyer. Get your lawyers to answer your questions. I can't answer them. I can't give you the depth that you would like.
I didn't
And I
get into
certainly,
that. I didn't get into that.
understanding where you're coming from quite well, my answers would never satisfy your inquiry anyways.
You don't know that because you're not giving me any answers. I'm just asking for the elements of FERPA.
I think it's called respect, Paul, between you
I
and
want to
me.
know what the elements are that required this review.
I think it's a matter of respect
If you did
too,
a
Paul.
review, you should know what it is you're reviewing.
I just wish you to have as much interest in all children in the school system.
I do. This
Mr.
is about all
Mr. President,
children.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bevilacqua.
I don't know what is going on with this discussion, but let me just say this, and I've sat on the school committee for a number of years, and I just don't understand where this discussion is going. I'm not going to get into it because I'm not sure what it's all about, but the superintendent gave us a statement, which was to invite the city's school committee's attorney to the discussion. And I think I'm perfectly happy with that discussion to take place with the city solicitor present, so that he could describe to me as a layperson what this law is all about and so on. But I think the discussion is not going anywhere. And I think that we're unfortunately, once again, in my opinion, using the parents and the students as pawns of the discussion for whatever reason. And I think it's wrong. I mean, I truly believe it's wrong. I'm not part of this discussion. I'm not part of it at all. But I just think that if there's an issue, we should have, that involves the interpretation and legal standings, we should have our attorney here. We do it at every other session. And I just suggest that may be the way in which we, at this point in time, close the discussion, and then have a meeting scheduled with the city solicitor, and then have this full frank discussion, address any questions that need to be addressed, find the answers, find the procedures, but I just don't believe we're getting anywhere tonight with this. And I say that respectfully to all my colleagues and to the superintendent. I would just suggest that, you as president may want to just consider that as a course of action.
That is fine. It's what the will of the committee is, not just me. I'm just one member.
Oh, I understand.
It's certainly what the will of the committee is. The only thing, I have no idea of the specifics, as I said, Attorney Magliacchetti, I didn't know about any letterhead and I didn't see any letter. I do know that there is policies on the book relative to the dissemination of student information that we have in our policy handbook of a parent being able to request that information and being able to get, I don't know the specific language, but I know that, or which policy number it is, but I do know that there is policies on the book that allow parents the right to their son or daughter's information, which should be online. It's online on the school committee website. But I do know that we do have policies relative to the dissemination of information that have been on the books for at least since I got here for a number of years. So I do know that we do have that. I don't know if you were asking if we had those on the books or not, but I can tell you that.
I'm asking if we're compliant with the FERPA laws.
Okay.
Because there was a review
So you're,
done
with the policies, you're asking if the policies are compliant with the FERPA law?
with, yes, that we are compliant as a district.
Okay.
Because our federal funding, federal grants, all that is subject to being compliant with this.
Okay.
This is a major issue.
Okay. What is the will of the committee and what action are you to?
Well, can I just make one comment, Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
There's it is a major issue, as is in Title I, if we don't follow every component of identifying equipment. So there's federal law, and that's why I suggested you have the city solicitor. All these federal mandates have 25 tentacles to them. I certainly am not a lawyer. I don't know all the ins and outs of every single regulation law, and as we've stated before, we do the best we can to implement that. I've been an employee here since 2002, and I've never seen it addressed before publicly, and we've been addressing it, and not just with the date that Mr. Magliacchetti said. We've had other incidents this year where people have abridged someone's rights and responsibilities about disclosing information, and we've dealt with it. This has become a public matter, or a matter that's discussed at the school committee table for various reasons. But the other issues that we've handled them professionally and with dignity. This has taken on a whole new realm since the class standing issue has come up. So, and that's why I sent a letter out to the parents on a number of related issues. But to say that we haven't addressed this before is not factual. We've been dealing with this for the past year and a half on different violations and intent with the law. I'm not privy to every single tenet of the act, but we do our best to do what's right.
Okay.
So with that, I again make the same suggestion. If you have more questions, I think the legal counsel is the
All right,
appropriate.
again, as I said, it's up to the committee. Also, I can only speak as one individual member of the committee. I'm finishing up my 12th year now as a member of the school committee. That's the first I've heard of a parent being denied access to I've never received, I'm not saying you haven't, but I've never received, and Mr. Bevilacqua's been here, I don't know if he's ever received. I've never heard of parents being, I don't know why a parent would be denied access to it, their
I will
son
make
or-
sure that the parent hears that and gets you the same email that I got. Like I said, I
Well,
thought,
I think
I
that
thought
it's
it went to
certainly-
everyone. I didn't know
I
it was
think it's
just me.
certainly important that if a parent, obviously, and I don't think anybody up here disagrees, and I
If
would
you
assume-
have it, if you have access to it, and the policy, you're supposed to share it. Why couldn't you just send it from your computer to everyone here? Unless you say you must know it's intended for you and not everybody else. Because if you have it, and it's written to you, you could share it with everybody on the committee by pushing the buttons on your computer. So to go back,
If I get an email and it has, I don't know who it's, sometimes you'll have a list of names that says who it's going to, and sometimes there'll only be one name because there's a way that you
Mr.
can send
President,
an email with only one or
This is
two.
crazy.
And so I don't know who's getting that, if it's just that one that's directed to me or if it's to the group. But now I know. Now you'll all get what I get.
Mr. Bevilacqua, do you please have a suggestion since
Well,
the chair can't make a motion?
I have one suggestion. You know, and again, I just feel we're making the parents and the kids pawns in a discussion for whatever reason. If an issue comes up that affects a parent or a student, I call the superintendent and say, this is what I received. Can you check into this for me and get back to the parent first? The parent is more important than I am in understanding what the issue is. I would just suggest to all our members of the school committee that if a communication comes in relative to a student at any one of our public schools, any one of our charter schools, to communicate to the superintendent, you can send copies to me as well, that's fine. But the first person should be the superintendent so that he immediately has an opportunity to review it. Because the person at the end of the line is the student. And the student shouldn't be left dangling. And the parent who is concerned about the student is obviously very, very concerned. So while we play this game back and forth that's getting nowhere, whoever, I don't know what the issue is, the student is out there hanging. And the parent's out there waiting for information. So, I mean, this discussion, in my opinion, isn't really productive tonight. We've spent, 20 minutes talking about it. I don't think we've gotten anywhere. But again, I just urge us all to communicate with the superintendent. That's the person we hold accountable for all this. And I have to believe that, like every business person in the world, he doesn't know every single step that's taken. But that's why, and I was just thinking when you were talking, both Mr. Magliocchetti and Mr. Scully, when we had a discussion on the budget, who stood at that podium?
Mullins.
And what does Melanson do? He's an accountant firm. He helps us understand the discussions that we're having. That's how I view a lawyer. We have a city solicitor. Let's utilize our city solicitor, our legal advisor, to help us understand this issue. You know, when we had a discussion on the measles, who stood at the podium?
Dr. Maddox.
And because he's a healthcare professional. When we had a discussion on the other issues, we asked our experts to be there to help us define and understand the issues. So I know Mr. Magliocchetti is very concerned about this issue. I know the superintendent is working to address all the issues. But I didn't hear the superintendent say no. What I heard him say is, let's ask the city solicitor to be here, and then we'll have that discussion. It just follows the practice that I see and have seen at the school committee, where we have a question, we bring the experts in. You know, when we had the discussions over the years relative to the different programs at the schools, whether it be the arts or the musics or sports, the person that stood at the podium to help us was the director of those programs. Because that's the person that has the day-to-day responsibility, the day-to-day administration, the day-to-day caring for those respective programs. I view the city solicitor the same way. But this, again, I don't know the Code of Federal Regulations, or municipal regulations. I don't know the details as Mr. Magliocchetti does, or perhaps others. But I do know the person that does. advise us and can advise us, and that's the city solicitor. Whether it be this issue or any other legal issue. When we have discussions, we go to an executive session that's on personnel matters, who's sitting in the room? But the city solicitor. Because he's advising us on the issues that we need to know. So I view him as an aid to us to better understand the issues. But my concern still rests with the student and the parent that's waiting for information. So let's try to get that process. And again, I say respectfully to my colleague and to the superintendent, I think, in my opinion, there's been enough discussion on this tonight. It didn't go anywhere. May have confused the issue even more. So I look to your leadership, Mr.
That would
Mr.
be
Wood.
my suggestion. I believe that we've had the discussion tonight. We've got as far as that we will. If Attorney Magliochetti's wishes to have the city solicitor at the next meeting, I can certainly do that.
So moved.
Okay. Is there? Do I need a motion? Is there anyone that objects to having the city solicitor
No.
come to the next meeting?
I don't think
Seeing
any
no
of us-
objection, the city solicitor will be invited to the next meeting to speak of the FERPA law and the requirements for the school district. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Bevilacqua, energy conservation at school buildings.
Yes, and I've been discussing this matter with the mayor and with the superintendent of schools. One of the issues that continue to bother all of us is the high cost of energy. You know, every time you go to the gas station, you fill up the gas, you see the gas rising. That leaves less money in your pockets to spend on the issues that are important to you. But the same thing is true with energy inefficiencies in buildings. Our public school buildings are a tremendous user of public energy, and it costs our taxpayers of the city of Haverhill a tremendous amount of dollars. One of the things that I'm aware of is that many of our school buildings now are becoming more energy efficient. We put more energy efficient boilers in the school buildings. We put better windows. We've also provided better insulation. But there are other districts that are getting more involved with more aggressive forms of energy savings. For example, one of the technical high schools is 100% powered by solar. The actual solar farm is actually located off-site, probably 30, 40 miles away. There are power purchasing agreements that are able to be undertaken, and there are other issues that are being taken place. The solar panels that you see on buildings today, in some cases, are actually being put in parking lots or on terrain that is not suitable for playing, for a playground or for recreational purposes or sports. They're not suitable for parking. At the same time, we see, as I mentioned, distant solar farms that are held outside of the city coffers. The other issues that are being discussed are not as great anymore. Wind at one time was being discussed as a possible savior. But I know that there are other energy saving opportunities. I would like, at some point in time in the future, to have a meeting with whoever the city and school department are using for energy
Sure.
consultant and discuss the options that are being done. I know the Hunting School is going to become an energy efficient model, and I know that gives us bonus points on the funding from the state.
Right.
But in terms of our other buildings, I just offer
I can give you an update. We just met.
Just somewhat brief and invite Mr. Geary
Sure.
to a future meeting
Yeah,
when he can
just
talk
the
about
three
this.
issues that we're dealing with: the high school pool, and I believe the Constantino. And I'll bring the firm in, and we're dealing with Orlando from the mayor's side,
Yeah.
and Tommy Gary. They're working together with a few energy
Yeah, I think,
companies.
yeah, and
So what I'll do is I'll bring them to the next meeting so they can give
I
you a
know
briefing
you and I
on
have
it.
talked about this. I know the
Yep.
mayor and I have talked about this. It's just something that I think we need to continually continue on. I know that, years ago we had a discussion when the utility companies wanted to replace the boilers in the high school. The school department at that time said no to them, which I thought was a crazy issue. But there are opportunities now to do more things with energy efficiency. I know Mr. Tui was a leader in the discussions early on when he first came onto the school committee. He was very involved in that issue, along with technology. But I know that in the discussions I've had with visiting other school systems around the state, that there is more and more taking place in terms of discussions, more and more regarding the use of vending machines, lighting, smart switches and so on, where the switch with the unit, not only the lights, but the equipment goes off as soon as someone walks out, turns back on when someone walks in. I mean, and although we think it doesn't represent much, when you add up all our school buildings, every day the schools are in use, I think it adds up to a great deal. So again, I look forward to the discussion, and it's not an immediate issue, but again, as I've discussed with the superintendent the other day again, and with the mayor, I'd like to have a presentation to see where we are and where the options are for the future, because it is literally endless right now in terms of what we can do to conserve money. That money, once we conserve it, allows us to put money back into our teachers, our classrooms, our buildings. So
Thank you, Mr. Bevilacqua. So we will have a further discussion on this, an in-depth discussion with the right people when they need. Attorney Magliocchetti, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. We've been talking about this since I've been on the school committee. As a matter of fact, at one point, I was appointed by the committee to deal with the mayor on this and try to get solar panels installed at the high school, J.G. Whittier and Hunking. And I had met with Orlando and the mayor, and we thought we were getting somewhere, but ended up puttering. One thing that I would like to see during the follow-up discussion on this is Tesla has come out. They're kind of changing the game with solar. They now have battery packs that are solar powered that are going to be powering homes and commercial businesses. So they actually have these battery packs in the building that's going to store the energy and keep the facilities going. So whatever presentation or whatever study we see going forward, I think should include that kind of technology that's kind of breaking the ground right now and moving forward, because I think a lot of the technology that we've been talking about for the past 4 or 5 years is actually going to start transitioning to new technology. So I just like to see that as part of the discussion. Thank you.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Thank you, President Wood. Just want to say thank you to Mr. Bevilacqua for putting this on the agenda. I agree, it's a very important issue, the energy conservation in the school buildings. And if we can bring about those changes, it would save a lot of money and it would benefit the students and the schools and the teachers. So, again, I look forward to a further discussion on this and, making it happen. And I thank you for bringing it
And the
up.
other point, and I'll close on this item, Mr. President, is that it also is an opportunity for us to, and I know this is the discussion I had with the superintendent. He made a very good suggestion when I discussed this with him. Utilizing the STEM opportunity, the science, technology, engineering, math, the more we can utilize the solar or energy conserving projects, it also introduces those kids to that science and engineering and technology field. There is so much happening right now. I know the college is utilizing a program with a power purchasing agreement from a private business in Haverhill. The solar farms are coming off-site now, as I mentioned. In some of the other states, they actually utilizing the school parking lots for solar fields and so on. So there's so much opportunity, and I know that the superintendent and the mayor are working on it. I like to have a presentation because the opportunities are really endless, and we just need to continue to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bevilacqua. We'll put that on the next item. Next item is subcommittee reports. Just real quick, and this is going to be very quick because there's probably no one left watching us now at this hour. Had a meeting last night with the Whittier Votech School Committee. The school committee decided they're not to obviously do a search, an outside search. They only accepted internal candidates. Only one candidate was brought to the full school committee, which passed. Besides 2 votes, myself and the representative from Newburyport also opposed that appointment. However, what I think is more important to bring up were the comments made by some of the Whittier Votech school committee members that are in the record and going to be on TV that were flat out lies and a distortion of the record. They were highly insulting, in my opinion, to Mr. Scully and to the Haverhill School Committee. Their comments, they had a newspaper article with a quote from Mr. Bevilacqua that they used and cited that when we hired the superintendent of schools, Mr. Scully, that we did not interview any candidates but him, which is a flat-out lie. We interviewed, as a matter of fact, their former superintendent, who we did not choose. We also interviewed, Mr. Scully was by no means an internal candidate. He was retired on the beach when he applied back. I'm sure he wishes he was there right now.
I love being here. It's great being a pinata.
There was numerous candidates. There was a former candidate from Lawrence as well. My point was, and I would ask the committee to authorize a letter to their chairman and vice chairman that was made this as part of the public record, that this is what the Haverhill School Committee did not do any type of search for Mr. Scully, that we just unilaterally appointed him, that we know we did not interview anybody else, and
Do you want to write that we did not do the search?
no,
Or
I
you
want to write the
clarify it?
truth.
Oh, yes.
Why don't we get the, I think Mrs. Casano can find in the records,
Yeah.
the names of
Yeah,
And,
the
and provide
applicants
them
and send
with
it to
the
them.
with the minutes.
That's all.
My
Very simple.
problem is it's not only. Look, I don't really care if they like me or not. I'm not trying to make friends with anybody down there. Most of them are trying to make friends because I don't know. They want somebody to get a job. Whatever their issue is, they want to make friends with people. That's their issue. I'm not looking for any friends. I'm there for the kids. So
Can I just, if I say one thing, Mr. President, I've sat in on several.
You may.
Several of the searches, when we selected Mr. Buchanan, there was a search. We interviewed several candidates for that position. When we selected Mr. Scully, there was a search. We interviewed several candidates for that position. You know, and I think if you put that in the letter that we've just to clarify the fact that in the last two superintendents, again, we obviously just want to simply clarify the position, because any statement that we did not do a search is totally inaccurate and inappropriate. And so I would support your decision and.
thank you.
to,
And
to
it
do
was
that letter.
also for the superintendent, for his reputation, clearly not appropriate. Having said that,
I think we're all in
I
agreement. You
actually-
probably don't need a motion for that.
I'll write the letter. Mr. Tui, God bless you for serving 3 years down there.
Longer than that.
Longer than 3 years down there. To say that, I won't even say what I want to say. I'll just keep it to myself. But it's.
Let me may I speak?
Go ahead, Mr. Tui.
Just real quick, I mean, I had some good years there. I do feel bad that you've been exposed to some tough meetings down there. I do appreciate your efforts as well. I mean, Whittier is a very good school. Let's not lose sight of that. But at the same time, I appreciate you defending your position, doing your very, very best to advocate for the children of Haverhill, which is your number one priority. I am a little confused, though. I thought that this issue relative to the search was there were more individuals, in particular, not only the other individual from another rep from Haverhill, but I thought you had other members that were against that internal. What I call the internal bag job. So is that not, did that change?
It did, unfortunately. We had the representative from Ipswich change, the representative from Groveland, and unfortunately, the representative from Haverhill also changed at the last minute. These are very important things that are affecting our budget. Whittier is an outstanding school,
question about it.
And that's what we're here for. However, the operation in the way that things run certainly are leave things to be desired, and certainly Haverhill doesn't have a very strong voice. We're clearly outnumbered. There's clearly disdain for the city of Haverhill by that committee.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what Mr. Bevilacqua just said along with you. I certainly support your the letter, and I look forward to seeing that letter. And like I said again, I appreciate you bringing this forward. But I wish you well on your next several meetings, and hopefully things will go a little more smoother for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Dennehy.
I just want to say that this is all part of the democratic process. So while there are obviously opposing sides and opposing views, it's a shame that that it got ugly in with lies and with blemishing people's reputations. I do know that that's also part of politics, so it doesn't surprise me. And I know that you need to have a thick skin going into this kind of arena. So I support the letter. I just want to make sure that we're not
Confrontational.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bevilacqua.
That's what I'm here for.
Anytime.
The letter was
that
aimed.
we're just going to be not so much defending our position, but certainly defending our reputation. That obviously each group does things for their own reason. I mean, we went out for a search. I can remember being a part, as a citizen, being a part of a superintendent search when the superintendent when we put out the offer to the superintendent that everybody had chosen, and there was a scandal that arose afterwards, we were stuck with no superintendent, so we were forced into a different situation where we needed a temporary superintendent at the time. So sometimes there are just circumstances that dictate the next steps that are out of our control. You know, again, I go back to, this is the democratic process. People are entitled to their opinion. I'm just ashamed. I'm just sorry that it came down to besmirching someone's reputation, and certainly would support a letter that would come back and save ours. So thank you.
Just to clarify, this has nothing to do with me. I could care less what they say about me.
Exactly. Well, that's not.
It was defending the superintendent's reputation, because that's what I felt.
I don't mind my reputation. They said I've been a pinata since 1987, so they can say what they want. But I think the real issue, though, is the fact that you had an open process in Haverhill. There were more than 3 candidates. You had a number of people, including the former superintendent.
That's all I need to say.
You had 5 or 6 people.
Yeah,
That's simply
6
the matter,
people.
and I think we can draft a letter, give it to you.
Sue and
That's
I-
the real issue.
Correct me if I'm wrong, President Wood.
We did.
Sue and I were on the
Mrs.
interviewing
Dennehy
committee.
took part in it.
2 days
and,
of interviews, so there's not a problem.
This really had nothing, my objection with that search had nothing to do with a faulty search. Let me
So
be
you'll
clear.
write the letter?
That down there, only one candidate was brought to the full school committee. I want to be clear. There was no choice. It was one.
So you'll write the letter and you'll circulate copies to all of us.
We will. Mrs. Ryan Ciadello, Vice President Ryan Ciadello.
Again, it's just unfortunate that that has happened, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. And I just want to say that I fully support a letter to be sent over to them to clarify the issue, and that the process was done correctly.
And I agree with what Maura is saying and Susan. We want to, I think, put at the very bottom that we continue to support Whittier.
Absolutely.
Because
Yes.
it is a tremendous school. There are Haverhill
No
kids.
question about it.
There are
This is
Haverhill
part of the
kids.
process.
There are
I don't
Haverhill
think
kids that are
anybody's
there.
saying they don't
No,
support Whittier.
I'm just
It
saying that I
has
would.
simply to correct
understand,
the
absolutely.
record that
Yes.
we did not interview any other candidates besides
But
Mr.
I think
Scully.
the issue, Mr. Wood, I think, as you just said and Joe said, I think whatever we write, the issue is that this school committee has not castigated another school committee. And the fact that
Absolutely.
1 or 2 members from another committee may choose to do that. This committee, since I've been here, has never criticized the operation of the Whittier.
Thank you.
And I think, as Joe just suggested, that ought to be
In the bottom.
in the bottom of the letter.
Absolutely, and it will be.
I would make a motion to approve items 5A, B, and C.
Second?
Motion 5A, B, and C.
Items by consensus.
Okay, well, we have new business before that.
Oh, I was just trying to get.
Superintendent recommends approval of warrant number EV 2015015 totaling $1,404,236.24 as indicated in the agenda material. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tui, seconded by Mrs. Dennehy. Call the roll, please.
Attorney Maglio-Kenny,
Abstain.
Mrs. Danahy,
Yes.
Mr. Tui,
Yes.
Mr. Bevelacqua,
Abstain.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes. Motion passes, 4 in favor, 2 abstention. 4B, superintendent recommends approval of amended and restated articles of the agreement for Crest. It's all in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tui, seconded by Vice President Ryan Ciadello. Call the roll.
Attorney Maglio-Kenny,
Yes.
Mrs. Danahy,
Yes.
Mr. Tui,
Yes.
Mr. Bevelacqua.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes. Motion by Mr. Bevelacqua to approve items 5A, B, and C. Is that seconded by anybody?
Second.
Seconded by
That's
Mr. Tui.
relative to the minutes and the conference request.
Any discussion?
And the
Seeing
field
none,
trip.
call the roll.
Attorney Maglio-Kenny.
Yes.
Mrs. Danahy,
Yes.
Mr. Tui,
Yes.
Mr. Bevelacqua,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan Ciadello.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes. Is there a need for an executive session?
No.
Thank goodness. Can we adjourn?
Yes.
Can we have a
So
motion to
So
adjourn?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.